because the Russians say things doesn't mean we should believe them. They mostly say things to shape a narrative, to influence our behavior, to influence our thinking. So they're not actually provoked. They are actually making a choice to attack their neighbor, try to eliminate Ukraine as a state and as a national identity so that they can build their empire. So just because they say, oh, well, this would make things worse, it's trying to get inside our heads. It's not the reality of the situation. Well, I think it's a lot of bluster, and he has taken on a role now during the course of Russia's latest invasion of Ukraine of being an extremist spokesperson, saying the most outrageous things, whether it's about the inhumanity of Ukrainians or the need to destroy everyone, justifying the kidnapping of children. So the fact that he would come out and say that, okay, now it's fair game to attack British officials, this is just part of the litany of outrageous things that he's been saying lately.
He appeared to be responding to what our Foreign Secretary James Cleverly said after those attacks on Moscow, when he said that Ukraine has the right to project force beyond its borders. Do you think that by saying that, though, James Cleverly it does amount to some provocation to the Russians?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think the Foreign Secretary is quite right in saying that Ukraine does have a legitimate right to attack military targets in Russia as they are being attacked by Russia. So it's a perfectly natural and correct thing to say. Russia wants to have it both ways. They want to be waging this war against Ukraine and pretend that they're not.
You described Medvedev's comments as a lot of bluster. So you don't consider that there is now a real serious threat to British officials?
No, I don't. No more than normal. I mean, the Russians aren't going to go out and send, hit teams against British officials. I think that the Russians do view NATO and the West as an enemy. And so they're trying to attack Ukrainian forces, and they, of course, will try to disrupt anything they can in the West. But I don't think it's anything more than that.
The American President Joe Biden has said that he doesn't support attacks onto Russian territory. Do you think there is a risk that these drone attacks on Moscow, and Ukraine has said it wasn't directly involved, but that could perhaps split the Western support that has been pretty solid so far until now for Ukraine?
Well, it shouldn't, for one. I think it is, as the Foreign Secretary said, legitimate for Ukraine to be going after targets in Russia, since Russia's the one attacking them. And I think that U.S. policy has been more careful than the way you just formulated. I don't know exactly what Biden said, but the typical way the Pentagon has said this is that no attacks on Russian territory using American-provided equipment. In other words, we're saying, we'll give you the missiles, we'll give you aircraft or tanks or whatever it might be. Don't attack inside Russian territory with this. But we're not telling the Ukrainians that they can't use their own means, their own forces to be able to attack inside Russia.
Yes, and the British government has also sought assurances that British weapons won't be used in attacks beyond Ukraine's borders. But of course, there is a real risk, isn't there, that these attacks on Moscow play into the kind of rhetoric that we hear from President Putin and allies like Medvedev, who say that it is Russia that is threatened.
Just because the Russians say things doesn't mean we should believe them. They mostly say things to shape a narrative, to influence our behavior, to influence our thinking. So they're not actually provoked. They are actually making a choice to attack their neighbor, try to eliminate Ukraine as a state and as a national identity so that they can build their empire. So just because they say, oh, well, this would make things worse, it's trying to get inside our heads. It's not the reality of the situation.